Hello everyone! I'm back with another video, and today I'm going to be talking about my disability, my story with living with it, and what my disability means medically. So first of all, I was diagnosed with cerebral palsy at around 8 months old. What is cerebral palsy though? Because so many people think that they know, but they actually don't really. According to the Oxford Dictionary, cerebral palsy is defined as damage caused to the brain before or after birth marked by impaired muscle coordination or other disabilities. Most people are aware of that definition in the broad sense, but most are unaware that there are multiple types of cerebral palsy. I want to tell you all a bit about my personal experience of having spastic hemiplegia. Spastic is the most common type of cerebral palsy, and hemiplegia means it affects one side of the body. In my case, it affects my right side. I have a helpful diagram to help define the different kinds of CP. Monoplasia affects one limb, diplasia affects two, usually upper and lower. Hemiplegia affects two, again unilaterally, for me that's my right side. And quadriplegia affects all four limbs. I can't speak to the experience of having ataxic or dyskinetic cerebral palsy, so I'm focusing largely on spastic today. As we have talked about with our initial broad definition of cerebral palsy, it's brain damage before, during, or after birth. In my case, I developed my CP pretty early on in my gestation. When my mom was about 3 or 4 months along with me, she started bleeding very severely and thought she was having a miscarriage. My parents rushed to the hospital. Ultimately, they didn't lose me. The doctors were very confused as to what had happened, but I seemed fine, my mom stopped bleeding, and my parents were sent home. Nobody thought much of that incident until I was born. My birth was incredibly difficult. It was, I believe, 26 hours of labor, sorry mom, followed by a C-section, sorry mom. When my parents took me home, it was immediately clear that something wasn't right. I wouldn't use my right limbs at all. It took 8 months to get diagnosed properly, but an MRI showed scar tissue in my brain. So that's when they realized that what had happened to me all those months ago when they thought my mom was having a miscarriage was actually me having a stroke. And because of that stroke, part of my brain didn't develop and literally doesn't exist. Other parts of my brain have had to learn how to do the job of that piece of my brain, which is a lifelong struggle. As a child, it took me a really long time to understand that I was disabled. I don't think I fully grasped what was going on until I was about 10. I just wanted all the adults, doctors, and therapists to go away and leave me alone. I was fine. And that was the most frustrating thing about growing up disabled, is that everyone around you treats you like you're not fine. I was always fiercely independent as a kid, a trait that I have carried into adulthood, because I needed to prove that I was fine and didn't need all the fuss that was being made. Now, obviously, that wasn't quite true. I did need the doctors and the PT and the OT. But what I was really trying to escape was from society's attitude that being disabled makes you lesser and not quite as human as able-bodied people. That is an attitude that I'm still trying to outrun to this day. I was bullied in school for being disabled and wearing braces to help correct my limbs. Adults treated me with that weird fake kindness where you can still hear in their voices that they're looking down on you. It was definitely a struggle. Being an adult with cerebral palsy is in some ways easier than being a child. I at least understand what's happening with my body now, and that's made me much less resistant to treatment. All the braces that I used to hate wearing as a kid I now wear without complaint. I make sure to do my physical therapy at home and not just in the office. But still, all of that has come at a cost. While they say the brain damage that has been suffered will not get any worse, people with cerebral palsy tend to have bodies that age faster and break down faster, and that's exactly what's happening to me. When I turned 20, the joint pain started and has only gotten worse with time. Because I can't move properly due to my CP, a lot of my muscles are atrophying and tasks are getting harder and harder to do. I walk with a cane now, something that I didn't need when I was young. It's also extra difficult in this society that tells us your 20s are supposed to be the best time of your life, and I think I've spent about half of mine in bed. It's also incredibly difficult to receive specific care as an adult. For those of you that don't know, cerebral palsy used to be a much more deadly disease than it is now. It used to be very rare for a child with cerebral palsy to live into adulthood, but now most of us are. And to me, that's a very strange gap in the medical community. Most people I know with cerebral palsy and most doctors that I've spoken to about it agree that treatment for cerebral palsy is much more children-based and adults are typically left to fend for themselves. I advocate for myself and have for years, and that's how I'm able to see doctors that I'm seeing, but not everyone knows how to advocate for themselves, and even for me, it's not enough. There are still specialists that I want to see, but I'm being denied. But through all of this, I managed to endure. My parents did their best for me while I was growing up and still do their best now, even though I'm in charge of my medical journey now. I have a wonderful partner who never complains about also being my caretaker. We're getting ready to hopefully buy a house together, and I've been discussing all the modifications we'll be making to it to make everything accessible for me. My life isn't terrible, all things considered. But there is so much more that goes in on the day-to-day to take care of myself that most able-bodied people do not have to think about. And in a way, I'm very jealous of that. I'm constantly, actively thinking about my body, my limb placement. Am I standing the right way? Is my weight distributed evenly on each leg? Is my foot pointed forward? Is my back straight? Is my arm too stiff? Able-bodied people don't have to think about these things. They can just do them. It's so mentally draining to be using that level of brain power 24/7 and then emotionally exhausting because I can almost never get everything right all at the same time. It's literally too much to think about. And as my body breaks down, I have to think about more and more corrections. It's a vicious cycle that will never end. But I'll fight it to the bitter end because I have a life to live and things to do. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I have way more video ideas in the works and some collaborations with other disabled creators coming up, so keep an eye out for those. Stay safe and stay healthy. I will see you soon.